Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining Congresswoman Frankel's virtual community town hall. We received hundreds of questions in advance, and you can submit additional questions live in the chat. If you'd like to submit a question live, you can type it in the chat section to the right of the video feed if you're tuning in on YouTube, or if you're watching on Facebook, you can leave a comment. We won't be able to address every question live, of course, but we will do our best to get to as many as we can. Congresswoman Frankel will be joined by Congresswoman Kathy Castor and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Thank you all again for joining us, and I will now turn things over to Congresswoman Frankel to get us started.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. It's an honor to serve you all, and I'm excited to have this town hall. We're going to have two phenomenal guests, Kathy Castor from Florida and Jasmine Crockett from Texas, and I'll introduce them in a minute. Listen, it's been not quite 6 months since Donald Trump became president, and it's been quite a wild ride, chaotic. Well, it seems chaotic, but it is a playbook he's following. It's called Project 2025. He's ignored Congress, he's ignored the courts, and he's ignoring the people. He's impounded funds that the Congress has authorized. He's dismantled programs like the Department of Education, USAID, without congressional okay. And he's fired thousands and thousands of federal workers for no rhyme or reason. And that means longer waiting periods for things like getting your Social Security claims. And listen, I don't think most people don't object when you take a felon off the street. But this unleashing of masked men to grab people, throw them in trucks, no due process, that's not America. And last week we saw the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor and the middle class to the very rich in this country as health care and food security was taken away from millions of people. And listen, Trump has complete control of this Republican Party, and his Supreme Court has sort of made him like a king. In fact, today, the Supreme Court just lifted a lower court order now allowing Trump to pursue large-scale staffing cuts and agency restructuring without congressional approval. So listen, some of you may be applauding, you think it's great, but I know most of you and many of you are angry, you're frustrated, and you're frightened. And I want to promise you this. Myself and Democrats are fighting back, and I have two of the best with me tonight. I want them to, let's bring them on. There we go. Whoa, hello. Kathy Castor, my friend in Tampa. Jasmine Crockett.
You need to unlock your iPhone first.
Jasmine Crockett in Texas. Hello, girls. Thanks for being with us today. A little bit about each. Kathy and I go way back, way back, because I actually worked with her mother, Betty, who was the great Secretary of Education in this state. Many years ago, we worked together when I was in the state legislature. So I actually knew Kathy when she was, I don't know, Kathy, maybe you were just a teenager. I'm not
I was a law student.
You were a law student, okay. Anyway, Kathy is one of the premier experts, this is not an exaggeration, in the Congress on climate action and Medicaid, on health care, because she sits on the committees that does that work, and she was our chair of our climate action committee when we were in charge of the House. Kathy, thank you for being with us. Look, who doesn't know Jasmine Crockett? She is a firecracker. I know you're going through rough times in Texas. I'm going to ask you to comment on that, but little thing that people don't know about Jasmine. She was a trial lawyer, public defender, right? Just like I was. That was my background, Jasmine. Public defender, trial lawyer, now kick-ass member of the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee, and she is fighting back like hell. I'm going to start. Thank you for both. I know, Jasmine, things have been really, it's so sad what's happened in Texas. Let's start with you. Just give us an update on that and what's going on over there. And thanks for taking time out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, it's great to see both of y'all and not be in the chamber. And thank you so much to each of Lois's constituents, not only for deciding to log on today to make sure that you stay informed and hopefully inform those around you, but also for sending Lois back to Congress over and over and over. She's an amazing member. And I'm glad to say that she's someone that I can call on at any point in time if I need help or guidance on anything. As it relates to Texas, thank you for all the prayers that you've sent our way. Unfortunately, it looks like the death toll has now exceeded 100 people. They are still looking for people. So, unfortunately, what we do know is that, in my opinion, this could have been avoided. I'll get into that just briefly in 2 seconds. Right now, I just want to say that what's most important is trying to determine who all is still missing and who all hopefully can still be saved. The president did declare a national emergency. That was very helpful for us because that opens the door to additional resources. But we know that while Lois talked about some of the inhumane things that are going on as it relates to immigration in this country, Mexico came through. Mexico has always been an amazing partner of Texas, whether we're talking about helping us out with energy supply, whether we're talking about water supply, or whether we're talking about helping out in times of emergency. And so they have sent people in to help out. And in short, the reason that I said that this could have been prevented or should have been something preventable is there are levels to this. So I know that there's been a lot of discourse about the federal level and the fact that there have been cuts that the three of us don't agree with as it relates to NOAA. And I'm sure Kathy can get into that a little bit more. As Kathy obviously understands climate change, but having an administration that refuses to acknowledge that we are experiencing climate change means that we're not doing everything that we can to prevent the earth from heating up. But more importantly, you've got two sides to this, right? We know that down in Florida, you experience tons of hurricanes. We know that they are coming more violently with every single one that comes about, and that's a climate issue. But in general, hurricanes obviously are a matter as it relates to Mother Nature. Now, whether or not you have the warnings is really the big issue that we saw in Texas. This is not the first time that the Guadalupe has flooded. This isn't an area that's in a 100-year flood zone. Unfortunately, the last time there was a major flash flood like this was about 30, a little over 30 something years ago. And we lost lives then. And so if you were around in the 80s, you saw the images of kiddos, again, at a camp along the Guadalupe that were in trees seeking help as crews were coming through. So number one, we know that this river has the ability to do it. We know that it does do it. And so there weren't warning sirens in that area. And so part of that is because federal government denied requested funds from the locals, as well as our state government did so, including there was a bill just this session on the state level to make sure that they could get some of those warning systems in place. And the representative from that area voted against it and doesn't quite remember why he voted against it, as well as the defunding of NOAA is an issue as well. That's the federal level. That means that they are not getting the most accurate information as quickly as possible. And it's our understanding that they did fire the person that would have then gotten that information to the people that they needed to. So, there were no warnings, and we're not doing anything to stop these disasters. It is truly heartbreaking.
Yeah, I know. I know our hearts go out to all these families and friends who have lost someone. So it's hard to move on. I'm going to move on, though. I know, Kathy, you'll pick it up when we talk about some of the climate change. Listen, uh, I want to. I know, Jasmine. I think you might have some time issues. Kat, we're going to talk about. Let's do this. Kathy, give an overview. We just did this big, what we call the big bad ugly bill. All right. Uh, it's going to hurt millions and millions of Americans. Give us an overview, really, of the worst of that.
Yeah. Hey, Lois, and Jasmine. It is an honor to be on with you. And hi, friends over in Palm Beach County. I actually have some family tuning in who are your constituents. But this is the worst bill that I've seen, and I've been in Congress for 10 terms now. This is the most outrageous money grab by the wealthy and the well connected that I've ever seen, because they give tax cuts to the wealthiest in the country, and I've never seen them go to ripping away health care, food assistance, uh, other sustenance programs, Pell Grants. They've never done that where they've gone to the working class people and ripped away what makes their lives easier and more affordable to fund major tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires. So some of the worst, going after our neighbors who rely on Medicaid. Those are the folks who often need a helping hand, folks that we love dearly, children. And Texas and Florida are in the same boat here because they haven't expanded Medicaid. So we're talking about really our neighbors with disabilities and handicaps, pays for long-term care. So our parents and grandparents who are in skilled nursing or trying to stay out of a nursing home and live their lives in dignity with home and community-based services. Uh, it's most births in the country are paid for through Medicaid, and in those early childhood years where kids get the help that they need to thrive, that's Medicaid. Then the Affordable Care Act. You remember, Florida has more of our neighbors who rely on the Affordable Care Act than any other state, and Texas is right behind us. We have so many entrepreneurs and small business owners, many people that work in hospitality where their jobs do not offer health insurance. So Florida has 4.7 million who go shopping in the healthcare.gov marketplace. This big ugly bill takes away the tax credits that make the co-payments and premiums affordable. So it's estimated in Florida, right off the bat, by the end of the year, 4 million of our neighbors are going to see higher bills. And when we're talking about this affordability squeeze, this is a topic has not gotten a lot of attention. Your electric bills are going to go up because they steal the clean energy investments that we made years ago that were helping to keep the pressure down on electric bills, helping to power the AI revolution, helping to counter China and the Chinese Communist Party. And it was fueling a manufacturing boom. And now all of those jobs are going to be lost. Those are a few of the worst things in the
All
big.
right. Thank you. Okay, Jasmine, I'll let you kick in. Add anything you want to that. I know you got some thoughts.
It's an interesting way to put it, Lois. Listen, I'm not going to get too spicy, okay? All I got to say is Kathy has absolutely laid it out. Essentially, this is a reverse Robin Hood. That's all. That's the only way that I can explain it. And for those of you that are saying, well, I don't have Medicaid, so this really isn't my problem. I'm sure you have somebody that you love that does. And even if you don't, it is still your problem. As someone who most people have no idea came from East Texas, I know what it is to live in rural America. And I think we think of things more holistically when you are in rural America. You've got to look at this bill more holistically. If you are talking about, well, I got good insurance and so I'm going to be fine. Well, guess what? That hospital may not be around, because what Kathy did not mention is that they are cutting $1 trillion, not 100,000, not a million, not a billion, not 100 billion. They are cutting $1 trillion. And so taking that out of the healthcare ecosystem means that that hospital that you may normally go to, either if they do survive, the chances are your costs are going to go up because they still have their overhead, and or you're just going to overall lose resources. So I think what we need to kind of just focus on is that when you look at this bill, even if you're saying, well, I don't get Medicaid or I'm not on SNAP benefits, because we are going to have more people going hungry as well, or I've already gotten my education, so it doesn't matter about those, grants such as the Pell Grants and things like that. understand holistically the costs are going to go up for everyone because so much money has been taken out. That's the one thing that I would just add is don't look at this in silos. That is how they were able to defeat us in the first place, is because they divided us and they distracted us. You need to understand this is all of our fight.
Right, we're all in it together, and I'll tell you, a big hit here, especially in Florida, will be on the nursing homes. It's predicted that 1 out of 4 nursing homes in the country are going to go out of business. Now, and that's because in nursing homes, most of the patients are covered by what's called Medicaid. And think about it, it's not just that the nursing homes go out of business. And then what happens? What happens when your grandmother or your disabled child or whoever doesn't have a place to live? Who takes care of them then? Who has to leave the workplace to now take care of an elderly a parent who can't take care of themselves? So lots of effects. Insurance premiums will probably go up for everyone, and those emergency rooms are going to pile up, right? Because when people lose their primary care, they wait till they're very, very sick. Food assistance, food security. Uh, Jasmine, let, give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so here's the deal. Most people don't know that, first of all, when it comes to Medicaid, the amount of money that it costs, just to put this into perspective, is $10 a day for a kiddo on Medicaid. That's how much we spend, just $10 a day. When we start talking about feeding someone, whether it's an adult or a child, it is only $6 a day that they get in assistance. This isn't necessarily allowing for people to go out and get those fancy groceries at Whole Foods, right? And just buy it up. We're talking about a total of $16 a day for any child that is in need between Medicaid as well as when we start talking about SNAP benefits, right? But if you look at it like this, Elon Musk gets approximately $8 million a day from the federal government. Yet we decided that we wanted to go after those little kids that at most are getting $16 a day. And when you start talking about, hey, we're going to cut this, mom off from her SNAP benefits. And so she's got these kids. Well, guess what? If that kid was getting, say, a free lunch at school because they were on SNAP benefits, that goes away too. And who are we talking about cutting off? I just want to be very transparent about this. We're not talking about the quote unquote illegals, because they use that term a lot. Illegals. The illegals are the one. That's not what we're talking about, y'all. Because that's not who's getting the Medicaid, okay? Undocumented folk are not getting the Medicaid. Undocumented people are being taxed, though, and they are making sure that they are paying into Social Security that they can't pull down on for all those that are concerned about Social Security and the solvency of it, to the tune of approximately $100 billion of our economy comes specifically from undocumented people. But when you start talking about, think about the kids, right? When you start talking about how well off they're going to be, how much can they learn if they're unable to eat, right? If you're starting to, and the final thing I'll say so that Lois can move on is they try to give you this face of things such as SNAP benefits. Let me tell you, this is the face of SNAP benefits that you're looking at. Because when I was in school, I was on SNAP. What that meant is that I didn't have to take that third job. When I first got to law school, I was working 3 jobs and was top 10% of my class. Like, I worked my butt off. But to maximize my ability to do well in school, one of my godmother, when I was in college, said, you need to get SNAP benefits. I didn't know that I qualified. So I did, and that minimized how much work I had to do. Well, ultimately, it led to me being a very good taxpayer. So just so you know, none of these programs was ever created so that they would be so good that people would just say, oh, let me live off of this. SNAP stands for supplemental. That is the first word of it. So I just want y'all to know overall that people are going to be hurting, but it's going to hurt our overall economy. It's going to hurt our farmers because farmers will not be able to adequately plan. It's going to hurt our grocery stores. So if you have already been complaining that your grocery store didn't have the greatest of anything anyway, well, guess what? Or if you've been complaining because you don't have a grocery store, there's going to be less money in the ecosystem. So again, this is an all of us problem.
Well said. Kathy, they're sort of playing a trick with the taxes. as the dates when things start and how long they last. Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, a lot of the impacts they put off until after the midterm elections because the Republicans are scared. This bill is very unpopular. When you when when you explain what is in here, and people are they're pretty in tune. Not at first, but now after they tried to ram it through in the dark of night, they had us voting in the middle of the night in committee and on the floor and in the Senate because it's so awful. They didn't want people to know what's in it, but people are smart and they know this means Medicaid for their child with a complex medical condition. But they tried to put off some of the harsher impacts until after the midterm elections. But here in Florida and in Texas, watch out because millions and millions are going to be facing higher health insurance bills right off the bat because you have to go into that open enrollment period right at the end of the year. You're going to have sticker shock. And folks need to know that's because the president and a compliant, weak Congress followed along, and they're passing a bit higher bill onto you while their donors and cronies get major tax cuts right into their wallets.
Yeah, Lois,
Well,
can I add to that
yeah,
really
yeah,
quickly?
sure.
I just want to really put this into perspective. So there's been a lot of talk about no tax on tips. If you are seeing ads, like I've been seeing ads, they running them all over the place or whatever. The no tax on tips is a game. It's a gimmick. It's a con, like everything else that they do. Okay. So here's the deal. They are only going to say that you can get no tax on tips. That's only going to be for 3 years.
Right.
But the tax cuts for the very rich people, there is no expiration on those. That's number one. Okay. Number two, there is no cap as it relates to the rich folk, right? Like, oh, okay, well, we'll give you, this low tax rate, for 3 years, and this is the cap. In fact, when Democrats, both in the House and the Senate, decided to introduce amendments saying, okay, let's do a cap for, $1 million. No, $10 million. No, $1 billion. No, they would not pass any amendments. But the cap is only $25,000 for no tax on tips. $25,000. The average person that is making $25,000 worth of tips, I can tell you they're not itemizing. Because guess what? It is so much better to just take the general deduction or whatever it's called.
Standard deduction.
Standard deduction. In addition to that, just so you understand, this is why we're like, this is a transfer of wealth. So don't get all caught up in the propaganda of it all. They are playing you. There is no savings whatsoever. Same thing when we start to talk about
the senior deduction.
Oh, that's a lie too. That's a lie. I know. So
3 years. It's 3 years.
No. But the thing is, they said no tax on your Social Security is what they're selling, but that itself is not in the bill. There are specific deductions that seniors can take, but the fact that there's no tax on your Social Security is just a lie. So the chance of you potentially having more money in your pocket, yes, if there are certain deductions that you are able to go ahead and enjoy in. Oh, the one that nobody talks about, this one I love, is the airship tax. The airship tax. So say you got a granny and granny passes away, kind of like Trump, because, he was born with money. I just want y'all to know. So Trump, his people died, right? Daddy died. Daddy Trump said, hey, here's a bunch of money so you're not poor immediately, right? Okay. So they said that there literally will be no tax whatsoever up to $14 or $15 million as it relates to a transfer of wealth. Okay. And that expires in maybe 27 or something like that. So that does have an expiration, kind of, sort of, not really. It then drops down to $7 million. So you tell me, if you're putting no tax on tips up to 25,000, but if granny got a bunch of money and she passing you 15 million or 7 million, that's okay. Listen, go ahead and raise it. Like, it's inequitable across the board. The caps are inequitable, as well as what there are time limits on versus what is forever. That is inequitable. That is why we are talking about the transfer of wealth in addition to everything being compounded with the fact that we do have a food insecurity issue, as well as a housing insecurity issue, as well as a healthcare insecurity issue in this country. And now, even if you get no tax on tips, baby, I'm sure you would have preferred to pay the tax on the tips instead of being stuck with the medical debt that you may be sacked with if ultimately you don't have access to healthcare.
Well, that's a good point. This is a statistic that really got to me, which is this: people who make over $1 million a year will have an additional $96,400 per year, and the average benefit for someone making under 50,000 is $247 a year. Wow, that's a big difference. And I think we should add that all this adds another $4 trillion to our
Right.
debt that will be inherited by our
Going to
children and
fuel
grandchildren.
inflation. Going to
Okay.
fuel inflation.
All
Higher
right.
interest rates, and God, that's so. It's fiscally irresponsible and morally wrong. It's morally wrong to put that on our kids and grandkids, but the impacts are going to be immediate because this will fuel inflation, and people already are suffering with an affordability squeeze.
All right,
Yeah.
ladies, you ready for some questions from our viewers? Okay, let's go, Dan. Oh, I know who wants. You can both answer this question. Okay, Dan, you going to read the question?
Sure. What are Democrats doing to hold the Trump administration accountable?
Okay, so Kathy, you talk about what's happening in committees, and then I'm going to let you take it away, Jasmine, with
It
your
is not.
oversight.
Yeah, it is not business as usual. We are using every tool at our disposal, but it's hard not to have the House or the Senate, and the courts, thankfully, are generally holding. But it's been very impressive. I think the people across the country, you see them out on the streets. They're with us. They know that they are being taken advantage of. In Congress, we're using every tool in our committees, offering amendments, taking up time, but we have so much more to do. We just, people are tireless. Folks like Lois and Jasmine are in the gap. They are standing up every day. That's
And you too, Kathy. Yeah, you know, I here's the thing: this big, bad, ugly, terrible bill is unpopular in a large way because actually Democrats have been fighting back so hard and bringing that up to the public. I know Jasmine's on the Oversight Committee. I call that, and the Judiciary Committee, I call that the Fight Back Committee.
Yeah.
So, Jasmine, talk about some of the things, how Democrats are fighting back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kathy is right. Like, we have absolutely tried to bring up so many of the amendments that we could. One of the reason that the approval rating as it relates to this bill is so low is because we actually were, I know y'all complain about our comms, but obviously we got something to get through because people understood overall that this was a bad bill, right? They may not understand all of the levels of like how bad it is and that kind of stuff. Because it is approximately 1,000 pages, so I get it. But generally speaking, like, people understood. And that is because, we were doing things like, as we were sitting in our committees, we were making sure that we could bring common sense, not partisan, right? Like, I just want to be clear that, like, our fight isn't really a partisan fight, or it shouldn't be a partisan fight. Because when I look at these numbers that talk about Medicaid or SNAP or any of the other, or the taxes, right? I'm not saying, well, this is going to be good for the Democrats or this is going to be bad for the Republicans or whatever. Like, that's not how I look at it. Like, everyone is going to be impacted. And I think so long as we continue to say that we are in a moral fight, we are fighting right versus wrong, good versus evil. This really isn't a matter of Dems versus Republicans. I mean, that's kind of what it's boiling down to ultimately. So number one, we're making sure that we're fighting back, but also, like, one of the things that I do in committee is I try to like recenter people's focus. Okay. So they get to decide what our committee hearings are going to be about. And frankly, they use a lot of distractions. They distract and say, well, we're going to have committee hearing on this. Well, I'm going to bring you back in a very creative way. I'll bring it back to make sure that people are focused on what it is. On oversight, we have launched over 100 investigations while we're sitting here in the minority. Unfortunately, we don't have the full weight that we would want to have. We're not able to use subpoena power. Unfortunately, we have tried multiple times in very creative ways to even just subpoena Elon Musk to the Oversight Committee. I serve on the Doge subcommittee so that we could have him testify before Congress under oath and explain exactly what it is that Doge is up to with your personal information, to tell us why it is that they believe that these cuts are actually beneficial to the American people. So we have tried and tried and tried, but ultimately, I will tell you that the people on our team that are doing the best right now, it's the Democratic attorney generals, right? Like, they are going out, they are the ones that are filing the lawsuits. And just to be clear, Lord knows I tried to figure out all the creative reasons to explain why we should have standing so that we in the House could sue when they were going out and they were impounding funds that Congress had designated to go certain places, such as USAID. Unfortunately, we as members of Congress are not allowed to go out and sue and say, hey, they're taking our power away. But our Democratic attorney generals have. We have definitely done everything that we could to support our Democratic governors as they are fighting back and pushing back against this administration. We just had a hearing with our governors. We stood in defense for them and tried to do everything that we could to make sure that we could highlight the work that they're doing. Same thing with our Democratic mayors. So it is really important that you understand that it's not just the federal House members. We are a full team, and we are working together to the best of our ability to make sure that we can push back in every way that we can. But unfortunately, I don't think our founders ever anticipated that we would ever end up having a Congress that would basically say that we are going to ignore and evade our constitutional oath. Our oath is never sworn to any single president. Unfortunately, that is seemingly where we are with many of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle right now.
Yeah, Kathy, I've been to many of the protests here. Probably you two have also, and it's hot in the summer in Florida, right? But we've had thousands and thousands of people out there with great signs. Just tell everybody how important it has been to us to have these voices of the public.
Yes, I hear you. The phones have been ringing off the hook. Uh, I don't know about you, Lois, but around here they say that our two senators don't even answer their phones. I'm sure that they're the poor interns that are having to collect all the messages that are left on the phone lines. But it's more important than ever to be an engaged citizen, to make those calls, to comment on social media. Be respectful, but very direct. It's more important than ever to exercise your First Amendment rights to protest peacefully, and it's making a difference. They're feeling the heat. And it's not just because we're from Florida or Texas. They know that they have been given, they've given us a crap sandwich in this big ugly bill, and they're going to hide from it. In fact, there was a recent news report that they are running scared, and that they are about to launch with a lot of their cronies a big advertising push to try to convince people that it's not that bad to rip healthcare away from 17 million Americans and take food assistance away from Meals on Wheels and kids in school, and to take away Pell Grants, all to fund tax breaks for the wealthy and the well-connected. People are smart.
So
they're not going to fall for this.
That's us saying how our constituents, how you're inspiring us. And I know, Dan, we got another question coming in.
What steps are being taken to push back against the Trump administration's unconstitutional executive orders?
Well, I'm gonna take this to our Judiciary Committee member, Jasmine. Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, it's the courts. The courts have been our saving grace. One of the very first executive orders was as it relates to birthright citizenship. and to have, in a very bipartisan way, which honestly our courts are just supposed to follow the law. We have seen Reagan appointees, we've seen Bush appointees, we've seen Obama we've seen appointees from both sides of the aisle that have ruled and said, no, that is absolutely illegal. We have seen this happen with a good number of the executive orders. But I have to tell you that also one of the things that we've been doing is we've been trying to work with a few inspector generals that are left, trying to get them to conduct their investigations. And when I say the few inspector generals, it is because they went out and they went after so many of our inspector generals that were over investigating, say, investigations involving Tesla, right? Like they went after those that were looking into problematic issues. And so there's a lack of oversight in so many ways, right? Like besides the Congress, we know that like when you look at the inspector generals, they are not partisan whatsoever. And so we have that. I guess what I'm trying to convey is that the level of systems that have been broken is even more than what we consistently talk about. We consistently talk about how there's a bending of the knee from House Republicans and Senate Republicans, but even like those other things that were supposed to safeguard us, like our inspector generals, we don't even have an FEC right now. They don't have a quorum. And so even when somebody breaks like campaign rules and laws, there's nothing that can be done. Like, I need you to understand like how badly things are broken. Like if you were to take a glass right now, throw it against the wall and it completely shattered, that is where we are, where we're trying to put shards back together. And so we also have not fully kind of gained an appreciation for how broken things are. It's almost like every other day we're finding out more and more of things that are broken because things are less than transparent. So as it relates to the unconstitutionality, in general, what we would like to see is that the Democrats control the House in the next half of this, right? Half of this term. And we be able to actually go after some of this unconstitutionality in the form of having hearings that lay out why things are unconstitutional. I know this question only asked about executive orders, but I do want y'all to remember this little $400 million plane that he is still trying to get. And when we're talking about dollars to feed people and we're talking about wasting money, what people haven't talked about is the amount of money that it would cost or that it's going to cost us to retrofit a foreign plane to make it safe and up to our standards, or the fact that there were already, I believe, 2 Air Force Ones that have already been paid for and ordered that would be ready at the same time as the one that he claims is free. And so we're talking about there's a ton of waste of our money. And, if I can make it unconstitutional to golf all the time, I would, but it ain't. So we are spending a lot of money on that too. But frankly, it is the courts. They are the only ones that ultimately can determine that something is unconstitutional. What we could do if we had Republicans that had Nixon level courage, where they would just say, just like in the Nixon era, you know what? This is wrong. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. And we are just going to vote the way that we could. But right now, Nixon is so clean right now. I mean, he's a priest at this point.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, we won't get that far, but listen, just folks, this is an amazing number. There's been 316 lawsuits filed nationwide. Members of Congress, we have been signing what's called amicus briefs, so giving support to them, and also in the background, giving the litigants lots of good information. I think right now the biggest obstacle is now Trump's Supreme Court, because we've had a lot of good decisions coming from the lower courts that are being overturned or stalled by the Supreme Court. And I just can't wait till we get you in charge of that oversight committee hearings there, the Democrats. All right. I just got a note, Jasmine, that you got to go back to to Texas or whatever. Is that true? I don't know whether.
I'm good for a little bit longer.
Okay, all right. Then let's get the next question. Okay.
I think.
Oh, this is for you, Kathy Castor. How does the bill promote fossil fuel and coal and diminish renewables, and how will it raise our utilities?
Yeah, this big ugly bill is also a Republican rate hike because they take away every tool that we had to develop cleaner, cheaper sources of energy. That's solar and wind, it's battery storage, it's being able to reduce demand. And remember that as we're grappling with the high cost of the changing climate, the climate change isn't just about the weather, it's about your wallet. And people in Florida know this very well, how much you are paying for your property insurance and your flood insurance. My neighbors across the Tampa Bay area are still trying to rebuild their houses, their lives after Hurricanes Helene and Milton that were supercharged because the Gulf was so hot. But here's what they do. They're just, you may remember, since this happened at Mar-a-Lago, right in your backyard. You remember during the campaign when the big oil and gas companies came in and Trump said, if you give me $1 billion for my campaign, I will follow through for you. And this is exactly what it does. It takes away what we were doing in building clean energy, the batteries, electric vehicles, being able to counter China. We had a manufacturing boom, a lot of private capital coming in to build solar and wind and other renewable resources along with nuclear and geothermal. They now take all of those tools away. They're going to kill the manufacturing boom. We've had 1,000 factories open. He talks about tariffs helping with domestic manufacturing. We had a domestic manufacturing boom going without putting higher prices on all consumers. So this is going to ultimately be a Republican rate hike. You have all of these AI, artificial intelligence data centers that want to suck up all the energy. We're not going to have the energy to be dominant in AI technologies. Those AI data centers are going to go to the Middle East, and they're going to go to China, and they're going to go to Asia, because 95% of the energy that is poised to come onto the grid right now is cleaner and cheaper. So the benefits are for your health because they cuts pollution. The benefits are for your electric bill. The benefits are for tackling the climate crisis. Instead, Trump and the Republicans sided wholly with big oil and gas companies.
Okay, we're gonna get to the next question. Let's see what the next one is.
As it pops up, I'm gonna just add to that really briefly.
Is
the electric vehicle tax credit. Elon was complaining about it, right? They ended that in this bill as well. And so, yes, there will not be the promotion of EVs in the same way because people won't be enjoying those tax credits. But go ahead.
Okay, thank you for adding that. Okay. Well, I think we touched on this, but how are Floridians in the healthcare market going to be affected? Kathy, why don't you touch on that quick? I think you mentioned that before, but basically, and it's the same thing could be in Texas too.
Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, has been a godsend. It wasn't just outlawing discrimination for a pre-existing condition like cancer or diabetes and allowing your child to stay on your plan until age 26 and lowering the cost of some prescription drugs. It was about unlocking the opportunities for a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners. So 4.7 million Floridians go shop and get affordable health care through the exchange. Part of what
we're number one in the nation on that, right? Number one.
Yes,
we have the most.
So, and then Texas is right behind us. But what Democrats did when we had the power, we said through our reconciliation budget bill, we're going to make your life more affordable. And we provided tax credits. If you are a working person, you can go shopping under all of the options under the Affordable Care Act. And 4 million Floridians took advantage of those tax credits. The Republicans now take them away to pay for their tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires. So unfortunately, We anticipate 4 million Floridians going to have higher copayments and premiums, and many won't be able to afford it and will go uninsured.
Okay, that's terrible. All right, let's get the next question. Oh, okay. All right. I know both of you are going to want to talk about this one. Um,
Mm.
how are you supporting our hardworking immigrants to protect them from ICE and alligator Alcatraz? Look, I think I can speak for all of us and say, listen, we don't have a problem when you take dangerous felons off the street. But that's not we see. That's not what we see going on, right? Because I will tell you this, and I think for most people know who know undocumented immigrants here, they are peaceful and they are part of our economy. But I'm going to let you two give you your. Anyone want to talk about alligator Alcatraz?
It flooded, so that's
It's like,
it's the best I got for you. That's a good
okay.
start. It flooded,
Okay.
but
Well,
I will
you know,
say that as it relates specifically to undocumented folk, I talked about the financial contribution that they make to this country. But Lois brings up another good point because she continues to try to make sure that there's a distinction about like there is this rhetoric around, oh, Democrats just want criminals to come in and break in and steal and kill and not at all. Like these are just absolutely inflammatory and flagrant lies about us, right? Like because again, we don't have D's or R's or I's on our like we want to be safe too. Like we don't
right? Exactly.
live in a crime-ridden community either,
Yeah.
right? And we obviously did not run for office so that we could have less, safe homes for ourselves and our constituents. It's just a lie. So let me tell you something real quick. When it comes to undocumented folk, they actually commit less crimes per capita than Americans of all colors. I just want to be clear because they are people that have come over here because they believe in the American dream. They believe that this is the land of the free and the land of opportunity, and they are seeking to better their situation and the situation of their families. And so basically, they just want to keep their head down, do their work, and get their money, and a lot of times send it home. And so long as we had a very strong economy, when they were sending that money home, that meant that money went a long way. And so that is why you have had people that have been able to take advantage. This is just the reality. Let me be real. They've been able to take advantage of those that are undocumented by paying them less money. Because ultimately, when they are sending their money home, it still goes so far. Now, I'm not necessarily obviously co-signing on that whatsoever, but you have to understand that there are certain, I don't talk about our international travels very often for sure, but like going over and understanding like what it takes to make sure that we remain the international kind of melting pot that we've always been, talking to different places in Asia, understanding that we actually get a lot of our nursing and healthcare help out of Thailand, right? Like they are training people up to make sure that they can fill jobs for us. We know right now that we've been down on our healthcare providers in general since COVID-19. So there's so much that they contribute. I'm going to shut up because I'm coughing.
Okay. So listen, and I'm going to get the cat. I think what we've been saying for years is we need immigration reform. We believe in a rule of law. There's got to be rules. We're not saying everybody come over here and don't follow the rules, but there's got to be rules. There's got to be due process, and we have to face the fact that there are millions of people who are here that are part of the fabric of our society, and we have to figure out some way to be fair, not only to them, humane, but to our own economy and to our own neighbors, right? Kathy, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, Lois, that's the piece that's completely missing in all this. A pathway to work, a pathway to citizenship. Alligator Alcatraz is another example of waste. It's fiscally irresponsible and morally wrong. And there's something about these folks like Trump and DeSantis who love to play the tough guy that really, if we did some kind of psychological profile, it's just covering up their weakness and their smallness, their inability to craft real solutions on this. I mean, is it, you all probably heard the case here in Tampa where a woman from Cuba who was married to a U.S. citizen had a daughter, 1-year-old daughter who was a U.S. citizen, showed up for her ICE appointment. They said, come in early. She went in with her 1-year-old daughter, and they took her. And this is a breastfeeding mother to her 1-year-old, and took her, flew her to Miami and then back to Cuba. She had never been in trouble. So yes, if you violate the law and you're undocumented, you are a serious criminal. Yeah, you're out with due process. But if what they're doing, they're sweeping up people who deserve due process, who have come here legally. Think about all of the folks who came legally from Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Haiti, and they were vetted. They had to have a sponsor. They were able to work, and now Trump and this cruelty, they've taken that away and said you all have to leave. Did they provide any legal pathway to work, or says tough but fair, learn English, pay, play by the rules? No, it's just it's bankrupt. It's morally bankrupt and stupid, frankly.
Yeah, and alligator Alcatraz going to cost Florida $450 million a year if it lasts. It's a hurricane away from blowing away. Okay, we got a couple more questions. Ladies, you're doing great. Here we go. Oh, education and teachers. We love them. We know that the Trump administration has pretty much taken everyone out of the Department of Education. There's really the mindset is to basically fund the private schools. It's to take the money from the public schools into the private schools. A couple of things are going on. There's a new tax credit that maybe one of you could talk about, the tax credit that people are going to get for putting money into private vouchers, and what's happening with the clawback of all the money that's supposed to go to education. Who wants to pick up on that?
They're trying to dumb down America, across the Department of Education, teachers, Pell Grants, picking fights with the colleges and universities. But Rep. Crockett, is it as bad in Texas as it is in Florida's state capital? They've now gone so far in Florida. They have you can get a voucher no matter your income, no matter what kind of school or homeschooling. That
you can get a voucher to buy a sewing machine, right? To work in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So now what the Republicans have done in the big ugly bill, they want to also give folks money that for an education voucher, because the private for-profit charters and a lot of the organized capital investment firms, the hedge funds, want the public education dollar to the detriment of public school students and teachers. And it's wrong. Is it as bad in Texas?
Yeah. So in fact, what happened is the session before this current session, they were unable to actually get their voucher scam passed in the Texas legislature. And so because we don't have any campaign finance limits, the governor himself invested in defeating even those rural Republicans that knew that this meant that their public schools in their areas were going to shut down. So they voted against it. He actually made sure that they got primaried, and a ton of costs, including he tried to take out the speaker. So there was a whole fight with the speaker in general. And so the speaker is independently wealthy from oil money. And so the speaker spent a ton of money to keep his seat. But then since there were all these people that came in new and they are like under the governor, the speaker lost his speakership. And so he wasn't even able to run because he didn't have the votes. So it got really dramatic. So this particular session, they did get it passed. And just like in Florida, there are no caps. And so, the Democrats tried to fight this on the House and say, why is it that some rich person who's already paying 9 times out of 10 for this private school, or people not understanding that the private schools or even these private charters, they don't have to take your child, right? Like it's not like public school. Public school is going to have a space for everyone. And then what's going to happen with our special ed students? So for us, it's been really trying to push and make sure, again, the theme for me is that you shouldn't look at this and say, well, this doesn't impact me. It impacts everyone. And that's what we're talking about, because now you're taking that money out of these systems. And let's talk about what the state of Florida wants to do kind of in tandem with this, right? Like, we've got those state lawmakers that are trying to roll back the child labor laws, right? So here it is, you're trying to people out that are doing certain types of labor. You're also trying to make it to where certain kids may not even be able to access these private schools or these private charters in general, because they may say, we're not going to accept you. And then they're stuck in a private school that never had, I mean, a public school that never had access to the resources that they needed in the first place. So it's easy to say that something is failing when you continue to defund it. And they have continuously made us in this country, not just with education, but overall have a scarcity mindset, right? There's not enough money to do both. You can only do one. And the reality is that no, they just pick and choose where they are going to prioritize their dollars. If we decided that we were going to have, say, a Department of Defense that was going to be fiscally responsible to the extent that it could actually pass an audit, that we could say fully fund something like public education. But unfortunately, we continue to put more and more money into, say, defense. And that's not to say that I don't want to make sure that we're safe, because I do. But when we know that we've gotten caught up with private contractors again, because where does Elon Musk get his money? He gets it out of when we know that we've gotten caught up because they were paying $1,000 per toilet, all these kinds of things. There is real waste, fraud, and abuse that we could go after. And if we could clean that up, then maybe we could stop pitting people against one another and fully fund something like public education. And those are the fights that I'm willing to wage on behalf of our teachers, but also on behalf of just like everyday people, right? Like, whether we're talking about making sure we can find the money so people can have food, making sure that we can find the money so that we're not reducing the amount of housing vouchers that are going to be available, just doing the things that honestly are morally right instead of being morally bankrupt.
Rebecca, I know, see, Rebecca T had asked this question. Rebecca, thank you. I wonder if you're a teacher, Rebecca. Public education really is one of the cornerstones of our democracy when you think about it. It's the way that we said we want to give every child the opportunity to succeed in life. And really 90% of the children in our country go to public schools. So when you see this grab of literally taking billions of dollars out of the public school system and trying to put it into the private school system, again, what is that? That's again this Jasmine, you told the reverse Robin Hood.
Yes.
Reverse Robin Hood. But it's not just that we need to put more money into the public schools. We need to make sure that we're funding preschool education, right, and childcare, and making sure children are fed, right. It's all these things that go to protecting children from child abuse. All these things that go to making a child successful, making sure they get their shots, right? Keep them healthy. Make sure they can see a doctor. They have an earache or a toothache, they're not going to do well in school. So there's so many parts to this, and that's really why when we go back to what just happened this last week with this big, bad, ugly bill, it really it's shameful the way we're treating the children of this country.
Yeah,
okay, that's appreciated for me.
Just so you know, we did offer amendments specifically in this reconciliation bill that would allow for teachers to actually end up with some tax benefits, and Republicans shut that down. So I want you to know directly the Democrats did try to make sure that teachers were able to take home more money in their pockets as well.
Rebecca, thank you for that question. Dan, you have another one? I think we have a couple more minutes. Okay, well, this is a simple question for Kathy. I thought people over 65 are not affected by Medicaid cuts. Is that true? Well, sequestration is going to, right? What's going to happen is because the deficit's going to be so bad, we have an automatic, something called sequestration, right? Where there's going to be huge cuts to Medicare. You want to talk about that, Kathy?
Yeah, they went so far that there's actually a $500 million impact on Medicare. Now, they said they're going to try to come back and fix it. But yeah, everyone is going to be affected by Medicaid cuts. And our older neighbors are going to be particularly at risk because they have many complex conditions and long-term care. Even if you're not in skilled nursing and you don't want to go there, the home and community-based services that provide that nurse to stop by and make sure you're getting fed in your elder years, or that you get a bath, or you're getting what you need, that's going to be squeezed.
All right, let's see. Dan, can we squeeze in one more question? All right. This is like I'm unleashing you both.
Well, I think you want to end with Rep Crockett because
okay.
he knows how to bring it.
Okay, listen. Okay. We're gonna fight fire with fire. Go ahead, Jasmine. Let's listen. Let's have some optimism, because here's the thing.
Yeah.
I hope you all can tell from this town hall that we're not giving up and we're not giving in, and we got a lot of energy, and we are fighting back every way we can, and we're appreciative of all of you that keep raising your voice in every way possible. I'm going to let you take it to a close. And first, let me just say thank you both. You've been terrific. Okay, that's how we fighting back, Jasmine.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I want you to remain hopeful, as Lois said, because they win when you feel powerless. And so I know that some of you have engaged in conversations and you're just like, what are we doing? How are we going to survive? And number one, I want to be clear that we will survive this, okay? Because we have faced the face of evil before, and we have somehow triumphed. So, and I say this as a Black woman. When I think about how, like, when I look at the immigration fight and I think about how inhumane it is, I think about the images that I saw during the civil rights movement of how policing was done on Black people, but somehow Black people were able to thrive and survive and get to the next level. So we have a playbook. We know how to defeat this, but it takes the people saying that we have the power, because that is the difference in a democracy and an autocracy, is that the power belongs to the people. But so long as you cede your power, they will win. So don't give up. We saw on the day that he decided he wanted to have a little birthday party or whatever, the people showed up to oppose him, and that cost nothing. He spent $45 million of our tax dollars to have this failed parade, but the people came out to oppose him, and they came out in record numbers. So please continue to push back, because there's so many more of us than there are of them. So don't be discouraged. I know that it may seem daunting, and make sure that you stay on those lines. I know some of you, the vast majority of you, belong to Lois Frankel, but if for some reason you belong to some neighboring district where it seems like they're not listening, it is important that you call in and you make sure you make your voice heard. And frankly, I don't believe that anything is impossible. And so if you feel inclined, then make sure you go out and you support people that are running for office. If you decide that you're going to run for office, then do it. If a 34 count convicted felon can become president of the United States, baby, ain't nothing you can't do, okay? So stop self-doubting yourself. And also, you don't have to wait on elected officials. We thank God for the ones that you have that are right here on this call that absolutely are always okay with remaining accountable to the people that put them into office. But if you know someone and you say, listen, they're not showing up, then have your own town hall. Get the information from us. We will always supply it. But education is the antidote. That is why they are going after our education. So stay educated and stay involved, and we will win.
Wow. You inspire me, the two of you. And let me just say to everyone who's listening, there's so many ways to fight back. Support the organizations that are supporting people, whether it's Planned Parenthood or the ADL or the Civil or the ACLU or whatever, or the churches and the synagogues that are feeding poor people. That is a way to fight back, to being good citizens, part of the community, and let your voices be heard in any way that you feel comfortable. For Floridians, Don't forget, the Republicans threw us all off vote by mail. If you want to vote by mail next election, you have to register again. That's the way it is here in Florida. And I just want to say, you don't have to wait for a town hall to get your questions answered. For me, I know it's mostly my constituents tonight here, but I think you two got some new friends. Jasmine Crockett, Kathy Castor. Hey, I am so proud to be your colleague. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you, all of you who have listened in tonight. Call me if you need me. We're here. I'll say not 24 hours, but you can always leave a message. But during the workday, we're here to help. Thank you, ladies, and good night, everybody.
Thank you.